Welcome to today's episode of the Big Dreams, Great Teams podcast. I'm Paula Maidens. I'm a hiring and leadership coach, and I work with small business owners with small teams to turn them into small but mighty teams. Today, we're diving into a topic that resonates with so many of us, reducing the stress of having employees. Now, I've noticed that whenever I do a podcast, a video, or even an Instagram post on stress, it gets a lot of traction and a lot of feedback. And so I guess that's really reaffirming to all of us and all of you about how present and real stress is as a part of your life, of my life, of our lives as small business owners. Hiring people to work with you, it's stressful. And managing your team, whether it's a team of subcontractors or a team of employees, can quickly get overwhelming. And a huge part of my purpose and my mission is to share with you practical tips and strategies to make that process of managing people feel oh so much more manageable and actually enjoyable. So today we're diving into how do you reduce the stress from having employees? Now, I can talk to this feeling of stress oh so personally, as I have felt it so many times in the 3 businesses that I have run in the last 14 years of being an entrepreneur and a business owner. I've also watched my husband battle with it too. My husband's in the building industry. He's a waterproofer, and his business at the moment is quite small because he's sort of really scaled it back. But at one stage, he had 8 people working for him. And I remember, so vividly seeing the stress of managing those 8 people, and it just looked and felt so heavy for him. In fact, I remember it feeling so personal and him saying the words that he felt responsible for those people being able to put dinner on their table for their families, which is like heavy stuff, right? Personally, my brain has never dropped right down into that level of like heavy responsibility, but I've definitely found managing the personalities and the personal lives of the people on my team hard over the years. I'm a really empathetic person, and I guess that means that I care deeply about people and I can often see and feel what they're feeling. Plus, being a fixer, certainly in my early business days, early days of owning a business and having people work for me, I found myself really worrying hard about the personal lives of my team members and the happiness of them, which, in addition to worrying about payroll, business development, delivering my own, workload to clients and doing all the things to keep my business running, and it did quickly feel really stressful. But over the years, I've learnt lots of ways to manage my own stress. And that is also something that I support my clients to manage their stress on a daily basis. And I'm really excited to share some of these insights with you today. So the first thing I want to touch on and start with is normalizing the stress that comes with having employees. It's completely natural. It's completely normal to feel stressed when you are responsible for paying other people. You're responsible for them being paid for their livelihoods. Of course, money's going out the door and your time is divided amongst more people. And it can often feel like things are demanding more from you than ever before. So feeling stress, it's common and it's a completely normal experience for every single small business owner. And there are heaps of studies out there that back this up. And I was actually reading one recently by Xero, which is the small business accounting software that I know many of you use. Xero surveyed over 4,600 small business owners across 7 countries globally, including Australia. And the findings showed that small business owners across the world experience lower levels of well-being than the general population. And the main factor impacting that well-being was business-related stress. Now, I'm sure for all of you as business owners, that is not news to you. But the reason I'm sharing it, because I want you to know that if you're feeling stressed, you're not alone. It's totally okay to feel stressed, and acknowledging it, of course, is the first way to manage it. And then the next step is coming up with a plan as to how to manage it and where you can minimize it. So I want to talk now about reframing your mindset, and that is the way you view your team. Now, whether they are employees or subcontractors working for you, how you view them plays a really big role in how stressed your team members make you feel. And one of the biggest shifts that I'd like to offer you is to view your employees not just as an expense, but as an investment. an investment towards your business's growth rather than just an expense that's going out the door and feels like a waste or it feels like something that you wish you weren't doing or you can't control. Because when you can shift your thinking to see your team as assets, it will change how you interact with them. It'll change the decisions you make, and it'll stop and change that internal mental debate. Should I be doing this? Is it worth them doing this? Can I be doing this better than them? Is it worth my money to get them to do it, or should I just do it? Which I know is in the head of many of you listening. So when you can view paying somebody else to do something instead of you doing it as a contribution to you building the asset that is your business, because a business becomes an asset when it starts to be something that's bigger than you. Because when it's just you doing the things, you're just sort of paying yourself to have a job, and that's not really an asset. It's just you've created yourself a job. So shifting your mindset and reframing it in your mind to think, well, when I'm paying someone else to do it, I'm making an investment in building the asset and the process of working out how they can do this so I don't need to do it, and how they can do it without me, and how they can do it well, and how they can eventually do it better than me is an asset building activity for you and your business. So that's the first mindset shift that I'd like to offer today. And the second one is about delegation. So the black and white reality of being a leader, of having employees working for you, having subcontractors working for you, having a team working for you, is that you need to delegate things to them. And the stress often comes from not trusting them to handle the things that you're asking them to do. So you need to work out how to trust them to handle the responsibilities so you can truly hand over the responsibility. And it's so easy to fall into the trap of thinking that either you need to do everything yourself or nobody else can do it as good as you, or worse, handing it over to somebody else to do, but like watching and walking the path so closely with them, shadowing what they're doing, how they're doing, and checking in on it the whole time that you are effectively doing it as well. So that is stress-inducing behavior. So working out what's stopping you from trusting them, what's stopping you from handing over real responsibility will in turn help you to feel less stressed about the fact that you are handing things over and you're delegating things to your team. So learning to delegate well in a way that means that you feel like you can trust the person and then you can actually let them get on with it. That'll free up your time. It'll free up your headspace, but it'll also free up your physical time to work on more strategic tasks. And then freeing up your time to work on more strategic tasks is another way to invest in your business. And investing in your business is building the asset that is your business. And finally, the third mindset shift or the reframe I'd like to offer you is to try to stop looking for mistakes and stop looking for the negatives. So looking for the things that the person's done wrong or isn't doing well enough, and choose to look for what they're doing well. Choose to focus on their strengths, choose to focus on what they're adding, what they're bringing to the table, and what they're contributing to your business. Or at least, and I'm not saying sugarcoat everything and ignore the mistakes, but just making sure that you are looking at it in a balanced way. That will not only reduce your stress, but it also will boost the morale and the productivity of the people on the team when you start talking about mistakes in a balanced way with the things that are also working well. Now, let's move on to have a think about and chat about practical strategies that you can start reflect on in your business and start to implement that'll help you reduce the stress that you feel from having employees or having a team working with you. Now, the first one, unsurprisingly, especially if you've been listening to me for a little while, is the importance of effective communication. Now, that means regular check-ins. It means regular team meetings, because these are the things that will prevent the misunderstandings. And these are the things that will increase the chances of everybody being on the same page and in turn reduce the stress that you'll feel if somebody gets something wrong, if they go off on a tangent, or if they've received and they think that they should be doing something that they shouldn't be doing. When you set these up well, regular check-ins and team meetings, when you set them up well, these will not only be energizing for you, but you'll also be able to relax, because when you've created this open, transparent flow of information and what we call an open door policy, then team members, employees will feel comfortable sharing with you their concerns, will share with you things that they're worried about, things that they don't think they'll be able to achieve. If there's a deadline looming and they don't think it's possible, possible because you've created this environment whereby conversation and transparency is welcomed and encouraged, then they'll bring that information to you. So you'll be able to stop stressing about maybe something that you don't know what's happening, or if somebody is happy or if they're not happy. Again, if you've been listening for a while, you've heard me talk about them. There's lots of podcast episodes on them, but time management techniques will also make a huge practical difference to your day-to-day stress. Because the black and white reality, when you have employees working with you, when you have team members working with you, is you have more things to juggle. You've added more people into the equation, and that is a fact. So learning how to protect your time so you're not constantly being interrupted through proper time planning and working in chunks on things that are important, and knowing how to prioritize what's important and how to let go of the things that aren't important will be huge to actually just letting your brain relax and letting your body feel less stressed about all the million things that you need to do and all the million people that you need to talk to. There are some really great time management tools out there, including time matrix tools. Steve Covey is one of many people who has a time management matrix that he talks about. And it's where you are shown how to plot on a 4, quadrant picture, things that are urgent and important, or if it's just important but not urgent, or if it's neither urgent or important. So if you haven't sort of seen this matrix before, I encourage you to go and Google it and just, time management matrix, Stephen Covey. That'll come up. Because the thing with being forced to get clear on your time management and get clear on your prioritization is that it forces you to put things in an order. And it forces you to stop thinking about all the things you need to do and all the things that you need to juggle in that long list way, almost from that assumptive place that I just need to get it all done and that's just a fact. Because the reality is there's only one of you, you've only got a finite amount of time. And if you can learn and work out how to list things out in a true order of priority, then you get done the top things and the other things can wait. And of course, setting boundaries is equally as important as time chunking and managing your time, because nothing is going to spiral you further into stress than dealing with the reality of you having said yes to too many things, or if you're not able to maintain a work-life balance, or let's face it, if you've said yes to so many things that there's nothing in your life other than work at the moment. And we've all been there. I'm the first to put my hand up and admit that I have been there more than once in the last 14 years. But the reality is viewing boundaries as being important and then holding yourself to the boundaries and having some alerts so that you know if you're breaching your boundaries is super important to actually managing your stress in a practical way. And this does mean not taking on unnecessary commitments and knowing that saying no to something is actually saying yes to yourself. I was sharing this story the other day. Last week, I spoke at a conference down the Gold Coast. It was called the Burnout Conference, ironically. And we were talking all things burnout, overwork, stress. And I shared the story that when I was working as a corporate recruiter, at one stage, I was a director and I had quite a few teams reporting through to me. So I had a lot of people demanding my time, I had a lot of responsibility, and the stress was real. And then, of course, the GFC kicked in. We had to go through loads of rounds of redundancies. It was full on and it was certainly heavy. One day, one of the girls who worked with me and had worked with me for quite a few years, her name was Anna, she asked me whether I was going to make it to yoga that day. Now, one of my techniques was to actually put yoga in my diary on the day I wanted to get there. And the way we were set up as a team is everybody had access to each other's diaries so that if you went in the office, they could see if you were at a meeting or what you were doing. So she had looked in my diary and she had seen that I had a time marked out to try to get to yoga that day. It meant I had to leave the office at a certain time to get to the class. And she actually said to me, "Hey, do you think you're going to get to yoga today?" And I sort of looked at her and said, "Well, I'm not sure." And she said, "Is there anything I can do to help you get there?" To which I sort of looked at her and hopefully nicely, but I'm not sure based on the level of stress how nice this would have come out. I said to her, "What's it to you? Why do you care?" And her response was, "Oh, we all like you so much more when you go to yoga." Because we'd worked together for quite a few years and she didn't really have much of a filter and she felt safe enough to say that with me, she sort of went on to explain the whole team likes you so much better when you make it to a yoga class regularly. And it was in that moment that I realized that going to yoga wasn't just for me. Taking care of myself and dealing with my stress also was one of the good things, one of the best things I could do to support my team. Even though that was 20 years ago now that we had that conversation, it's really never left me, that concept. So managing your own stress isn't just helping yourself. It's not selfish. It's also one of the best things that you can do as a leader to support your team to be able to thrive as well. So that leads me to talk about a stress management technique and a way of reducing how stressful it feels having employees is to build a support system around you. Now, I don't mean the team being the support system. I mean the people where you can just drop the party face. Somebody that you can be vulnerable, you can be honest, and you can actually talk about the stress with. This might look like a mentor or a coach who can normalize it and say, look, this is totally normal that you feel this way. Or, here are some strategies to deal with that. Or here's a shortcut, or here's a way that you can avoid a problem that's around the corner that you don't even realize is there. And of course, if you're looking for a mentor or coach, hello, that's me. I'd love to have a chat to you. But, having the person where you can be fully vulnerable, you can drop the mask, you can be stressed, and you don't have to show up as the cheerleader, which is often the role that many of us need to be and feel in business when we have employees working for us. We feel like we need to be positive Polly all the time. And to a large extent, you do. But you also need to have a person who isn't in your business that you can drop that face, say it how it is, and work out the path forward. So having a coach or a mentor is definitely a support system that I recommend, but also having a peer support system. So being in a room with other small business owners who also get it, that can be hugely helpful. I've personally recently joined a new peer mastermind, and I'll be honest, I went to the first meeting last week and I went feeling stressed, busy, and heavy. And I walked out feeling like everything actually was doable because the commonality that we were all facing in the room, although everybody's challenges were totally different. These people had all been in business about the same amount of time as me. They're all facing various challenges. And it gave me this energy and boost that I was like, okay, this is normal. It's all doable. Let's go. So look at what support system you have around you and view getting a support system, whether it's a coach, a mentor, and or peer support, as a way of supporting you to manage the stress that comes with running a business and having employees. Super important. Make sure that the room that you put yourself in, whether it's with somebody individually or with a group, is somewhere where you can drop the mask, where you can be completely vulnerable, completely open, where you can you don't need to show up and posture to be a certain person in a certain way, where you can actually truly share the stress and navigate the path forward together. Super important. Okay, so then the last sort of concept that I want to talk about and offer to you by way of a tangible, practical way to reduce the stress of having employees in your business is to view your leadership and your business journey as one that requires constant learning. So you're on constant journey. So not showing up every day thinking that you're meant to have all this sorted, because you're not. Nobody does. Nobody knows how to do all the things. And I've worked behind the scenes with a lot of CEOs, a lot of leaders in all sorts of businesses of all sorts of shapes and sizes over the last 14 years. And all of them reach a point where they need support. So don't show up every day thinking that you're meant to know it all, because you're not. So view yourself being on a continuous learning journey and, needing personal development and skill development, but also know that your team need to be on a journey as well. They need to be on a journey of learning and developing themselves personally, because it can and will directly impact your stress levels. And in fact, it will directly start to reduce your stress levels and the stress you feel in your business. When you start to see the shift happening from you being the person who knows the most in the room, the person who can solve the problems, the go-to person, when you can start to see a shift from you being that person to somebody else being that person, or multiple people being that people, through the experience that they've got, but also through the skills and the personal development and the learning development that they have been on. So that will help you feel less stressed, when you feel like you're not carrying it all, that you're not the problem solver, that the buck isn't always stopping with you, when you can start to see other people, developing their skills, becoming more autonomous, solving problems, being more confident, that will in turn help reduce your stress on a day-to-day basis. So don't be afraid to invest in the training and the development of your team, and know that it doesn't always need to be you doing the training. And in fact, where possible, make sure it's not you doing the training, because we all know that you don't have the time to do training. So if there's a course or something that your team can go on, send them on it, and then you get to benefit from what they've learned, and you haven't been the one teaching them or taking the time to develop them. Because this, of course, will also have a really positive knock-on effect on your culture in your business and your team, because your team will feel valued and supported because they'll see you investing in them. And when you combine that with this concept that I talked about before, where you're looking for the positive in people, as a culture and a team, you start to celebrate wins, the big wins and the small wins. All of this helps to boost morale and boost the energy in the team, which in turn will help you feel less stressed about whether people are happy, about whether, they're looking over the fence at something better down the road, because you'll know that you're doing everything you can to create a great place for these people to join and to stay. So to recap, we've talked about feeling stressed when you have employees being totally normal. And we've talked about ways to reframe your mindset. And I've offered you some shifts that you can reflect on and consider. We've also talked about some practical stress reducing strategies, including communication and the importance of building a personal support system, whether that's a coach or a mentor and or a peer group that you can, drop the mask, be vulnerable and talk about what you're feeling. And we've also talked about how important it is that you acknowledge that you're on a continuous learning development journey, and that you support your team to be on one as well. So while stress is 100% a normal part of managing a team, a normal part of having employees and people working with you, you can and should consciously work to implement strategies so you can manage the stress effectively, increase your resilience to it. The things that will come up, because they will just start to feel like a normal part of business, and therefore they'll feel less stressful to you. And I really encourage you to start implementing something that you've heard today. Pick one thing or two things and commit to giving it a go. Now, whether it's improving communication, maybe it's like setting up those one-on-ones, those check-ins, or setting the regular team meeting that maybe you've been doing in a bit of an ad hoc way or resisting. Maybe it's setting or revisiting some boundaries or looking at time blocking, or maybe it's like looking for that peer group or looking for that coach that you can talk to and get the right guidance from. Small changes like that, and even if you just choose one or two, can make a huge difference to how stressed you feel on a day-to-day basis, having a team, having employees, and having people that you need to manage. So I really encourage you to pick one or two and implement them. And of course, if you want to explore working with me, I totally love that. The best part of my private coaching, in my opinion, is the fact that my job is to make you feel entirely safe and to allow you to drop that face, be vulnerable, talk about all the stresses, and then I guide you on your path forward. And trust me, there aren't too many things that I haven't seen. I have seen and heard it all, because I've worked with so many businesses of all shapes and sizes across so many industries. And what you probably don't realize is actually how normal whatever situation you're finding yourself in is. And there's always a path out of it. You don't need to stay there in the pit of stress, in, wherever you're feeling. Like, you get to sort of acknowledge it, feel it, and then move through it with the right guidance. So thanks for tuning in today. That is all. I hope you found it helpful. If you have, please share it with another small business owner who no doubt is feeling stressed and can take something away from this episode as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast and subscribe to YouTube for more videos and podcast episodes and tips. Now, before we wrap up, one last thing. I want to invite you to submit any questions that you might have about managing stress and how stressful it feels and what feels stressful when it comes to managing your team. Send in a question over to our hello@paulamaidens.com inbox. And what I'll do is I'll gather those questions up and I'll record another episode dedicated to just answering your questions about the things that are making you feel stressed about managing your employees and managing your team. So that will be a really awesome episode, I think. So make sure you send in a question, send it via DM, send it via email, whatever feels good, and let's chat about exactly what's coming up for you. Okay, that's it. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for listening. And until next week, have fun.